You're listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast. This is a special episode featuring a recovering addict. Hi, my name is Sophie X. I'm the host and producer of the Voices of Recovery podcast. I'm joined here today by Andrew. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Sophie.
Thank you so much for being on our special series for the month of November for dual diagnosis and for doing the readings for the Just for Today and for the SPAD.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
So you're going on 7 years in recovery.
Yes, I am.
And your clean date is?
February 23rd, 2019.
Awesome. So you're coming up on an anniversary pretty soon. Another about, 4 months or so? 3 months?
Around there.
Yeah, around that time. And I have heard you share in the rooms before, and you have a particularly interesting story. And also you have a history of mental illness in your past. And I specifically did this special series on dual diagnosis because I want people to know what it's like to seek outside help and how those experiences have gone for people and how people have continued to stay clean despite their challenges. So I'd love for you to tell us a bit about who you are, how you got here, and that's pretty much it. Take it away.
So I've struggled with mental health and addiction for years. I finally decided to do something in 2017 to address my mental health concerns. It was while I was in a very destructive, abusive, awful relationship, and I wound up being treated for anxiety and depression. That was the beginning of my journey almost of seeking treatment for it. And a year later, I realized that I needed to make a huge change in my life and address my addiction.
When you say that you had a history of mental health challenges, had you sought treatment for your mental health challenges? When did those sort of pop up? When do you remember that?
I had not sought help for addressing any mental health issues. I knew that growing up, I had this anxiety inside me, and I wound up being, diagnosed with that. I also had to address the depression I felt over time. I grew up losing a lot of family members, and I didn't really know the healthiest way to process that grief, and those feelings contributed to my using or using that as an excuse for using.
And when do you remember the first time using in your life?
The first time was when I was 16. I was with a bunch of friends at one of their homes, and someone did something with an apple, and we were smoking weed, and
the very trusty apple.
yes, of course. Whether it's an apple,
a water bottle,
exactly,
a Coke can.
Yes. I never knew what they were doing, but when I smoked and actually got high, I loved the feeling of it, and I thought, wow, this is what life must be like. And this is how people get through life, being high.
And so prior to that, you had experienced anxiety. How did using interface with having anxiety and depression?
Using kind of calmed my anxiety, or so I thought for a long time. It would kind of fill the void I had inside me. It just it gave me feelings of confidence and the ability to navigate through certain situations in life and social situations as well. Hanging out with family, friends, meeting new people. I thought it gave me a boost.
Like a pair of sunglasses in the very bright light.
Yes.
But spoiler alert, that led to unmanageability in your life. So tell me a little bit about your disease's progression from using as a 16-year-old, smoking pot out of an apple to where it took you in the end.
So after smoking weed and drinking and trying a lot of other substances, I wound up going to college, and then when I came home, I just kept using. Whenever I put one substance down, I picked another one up. I didn't realize until I was in recovery, I'm an addict, and I used to call these phases in terms of, this was my Coke phase or my whatever phase. And I realized, oh, I'm actually an addict. So it led me to a relationship where I had tried a substance I had never tried before. I also decided that I loved it. My using got worse and worse and worse until I overdosed for the first time in March 2018, and my entire life changed that day.
So, what was that experience like overdosing?
It was absolutely awful. I know how I felt before I overdosed because I just got high and I remember those feelings. And then I woke up with all these people around me in my room at my mother's house, and I couldn't believe what just happened. And I realized, wow, I just overdosed.
So, you ended up overdosing. Where did that take you next?
So I was in the hospital for a few days recovering from the overdose. And I was told by doctors that everyone was worried about me. You know, your family's very worried. And the suggestion was to go to a facility. So I wound up going for 30 days. I actually wound up loving it. I discovered a lot about myself and came to the realization that, yes, I am an addict.
So, did you have interface with any programs in the facility?
I did. They brought different meetings in through H&I for AA, NA. I think they even did CA. It was a really good facility. It wasn't a hospital setting, so I enjoyed that. And I just listened to so many other people and their stories, and I related to so many of them. And I even decided that, wow, like, I can't believe I didn't realize this before. And I should have realized years ago that I was an addict.
And for everybody that doesn't understand the acronyms and anybody that's new to NA, NA is Narcotics Anonymous, AA is Alcoholics Anonymous, CA is Cocaine Anonymous, and H&I are hospitals and institutions. It's a special form of the presentation of Narcotics Anonymous to people who are in facilities. So, going back to what you were saying about, loving it, what happened when you got out after those 30 days?
So I heard a lot of suggestions while I was in there. I needed to change my entire life. I moved to an area in Suffolk. I was living in recovery housing. I got a new job. I had a new number. I had new friends. I started going to meetings, and I just started living in the suggestions that I heard from all these people that I listened to in the facility. And I realized I need, just to create a new life for myself. And that worked for a while. I took suggestions from people in the program and went to a lot of different meetings. I I went to so many meetings within the course of a few months. I got a new job, and then after 6.5 months, everything came crashing down again.
So, what precipitated that, do you think?
I think that I took on much more than I could chew. My plate was very full, and I was working a lot, and I wasn't managing everything that well. And I think I was just overwhelmed. I wound up getting sick, something like cold flu like, and I resorted to what I had always done when I got sick. I immediately went to the drugstore, got a few things, and also a part of me thought that I wasn't done. So the feelings of being overwhelmed, along with getting medicine that had alcohol in it that could have precipitated my relapse a little bit, and feeling like I wasn't done, all resulted in me using again. And I realized I wanted to use.
And being sick, too. Being
Yeah,
sick when you're not feeling well, it's a dangerous time for sure.
absolutely
I
it is.
know I know many people who, just started with the Benadryl because they couldn't sleep, or just, started with some NyQuil because
Yeah,
they were feeling, yeah, it's a scary thing.
it is.
So you made the decision to use.
I did.
And where did that end up taking you?
I kept using, and I think I was using for another 2 weeks, and I went inpatient again. And I wound up going to the same facility I went to the first time, but I was only there for a week this time instead of 30 days. And I was working it around my job at the time, so I didn't even want to take off that much time. because I wanted to go back to my job. So I went inpatient for a week, got out, and started doing what I had done the first time, going to meetings, doing all these things that were suggested. And I thought I was in a new routine and doing well, and then only lasted for a few more weeks.
So you were brought back to recovery by desperation, right? The gift of desperation.
Yes.
And before we get into what ended up happening, because I don't want to spoil the story for anybody, let's go back to growing up as Andrew as a child. What was that like? Talk a little bit about your personality, your sexuality, your family life, and what it was like to be you growing up.
So I grew up with three older brothers, and we were raised by my mom. My father had passed away when I think I was in fifth grade, around age 10. He had lymphoma, then he was battling. When he passed away, it was pretty shocking, and that was the first time I didn't really know what to do with these feelings of grief. They were foreign to me, and that was just a lot to handle at the time. I guess I grew up just like any other middle class kid on Long Island. Plenty of opportunity. Long Island has such good school districts. And I grew up with this belief that I was destined for greatness. And also, though, I grew up hearing my brother's names in school all the time. Oh, you're so and so's brother. You're so and so's brother. And I would just try to say, no, I'm Andrew. I love my brothers. We're very close. I'm so grateful for the relationships I have with them. But it was a struggle to separate my identity from them. I knew about my sexuality at least since fourth grade. I didn't come out until after high school. I knew for a long time. I didn't suffer that much bullying, a little in high school, more was in middle school. And it was very strange for people to call you a name or call you, by an identity you don't subscribe to yet. And I knew that no matter what growing up, I would have to be strong. I would have to be resilient. And I was always proud of who I am. And my sexuality, I think, is one of the least interesting things about me. There's so many other aspects to who Andrew is. And it took me some time to, I guess, find my voice, but it wound up happening and I haven't looked back.
And do you have a preferred sexual identity?
Yes. I came out as gay after high school, and I guess you could say my pronouns are he, him.
I think it's always really important to ask that when you find out that someone is LGBT. So thanks for sharing that with us.
Of course.
So, did you have any issues with respect to being accepted by your family?
Thankfully, no. I also have an older brother who identifies as gay. He's been in a long term relationship with someone. I always looked up to him and I saw how he struggled. And when I came out, it was, I guess, maybe easier for my family to accept. I know that I am very lucky and grateful because a lot of families don't always accept their queer child, and they even are so against them being their true selves that they kick them out of the home. And I feel terrible for people like that. I am very thankful for the experience I had with my family's acceptance.
That was my experience actually when I came out, and it was marred with violence, and it was very unstable, and yeah, it's hard. So you're very, very fortunate to have gone through that. So aside from growing up with your brothers and your mother, you also had a very close relationship with your grandmother.
I did.
So tell me a little bit about who your grandmother was for you.
So she pretty much helped raise me and my brothers. My mom was a public school teacher who worked in Long Island City for 42 years. I don't know how she did it. My grandmother helped us get to school, made sure we had lunches, made sure we were always fed. And she was also just a tough as nails person who survived breast cancer, who survived growing up poor. She had many siblings. They passed away over the years. My grandmother wound up living to 100. I credit my mother and grandmother for the person I am today because without their help, guidance, and lessons, I would not be where I am today.
Having strong maternal figures is super important, and you're very lucky to have had that. So take us back now to being in that facility.
The moment I got sick and started using again, there were another three overdoses. And then I went to the facility. And then after I thought I was okay, and I started using a substance that my ex introduced me to. And I was relapsing for a few more weeks.
And talk to me a bit about that relationship and how that ended up adding to everything.
So that relationship, we met in 2016. I should have known that it probably wasn't a good idea from the moment we met because someone who was using introduced us. And looking back, I'm just thinking, like, Andrew, yeah, that wasn't a great idea.
Hindsight 2020.
Yeah.
100% of the time.
Yes, definitely. The first several months of that relationship were awesome, and that's what I choose to think of when I think about him. And then when things got bad, they were so bad. And he verbally and mentally abused me and would just say awful things to me. I couldn't believe some of the things that came out of his mouth sometimes. There was more emotional abuse, there was physical. It was just a version of me I have never returned to and I never want to see again. When the relationship ended, we were both raging addicts, and I don't know what happened to him, but if he were to call himself an addict, I don't think he would be wrong. I would hope he would find the rooms or some sort of recovery program, but I know him so well that he's so stubborn he would probably never make the admission that he himself is an addict.
Yeah, that humility is very helpful into getting us clean.
Yeah.
So you end up in this facility for about a week. Tell me more about how that went.
So I remember hearing one of the meetings that was brought in by H&I, and I identified with the speakers so much. They were talking about their mom, and I heard from other people in the facility like one and done, one and done. And that's what I was like with people when I was in a facility for the first time, that same facility months earlier. And after this speaker finished their presentation, I went first to share and I was just bawling. And I felt so embarrassed that I had relapsed. And people came to me after and they said, Andrew, no one really cares that you relapsed. They just want you to be okay. And they are just happy to see that you're still alive.
It's an extra level of humility to be able to come back after a relapse. So
It is. I didn't think I would be able to do it.
a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't because of what you were just talking about of the pride and the admission and just saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to be one and done. That way that we as addicts seek perfection, that obsessive compulsive part of it. It's like, oh, I failed. Like, I can't go back now. I can't
Yeah.
show my face.
Mm-hmm.
So you're lucky that you were able to come back.
I went back to where I was living in a new town, went back to my job, then started using pills again, honestly.
So
And
you relapsed again.
yes, it was so weird because I loved being clean. I loved the experience of going to meetings. I just loved my new life and I just fell into it again. I realized that everyone around me where I was living started relapsing, even my closest friends, and I started to relapse with them. It took me to a really dark place over the next month. We were all using blues at the time, and I know that's an odd turn of events or rare to go back to, a substance like that during a relapse, but I did. Things got really dark. I was using every single day. I know I needed to address this and I probably needed to go to a facility again. The day before Thanksgiving, I woke up and I decided that I wanted to give up. I didn't want to do this anymore. I thought I was disappointing everyone, my friends, my family, and I made the decision that I was going to take my life. I planned it out. I picked up, went to a motel, and overdosed again.
Intentionally.
Yes. And Thank God I was spared. I remember being in the hospital and I realized, what have I done? Oh my God, thank God I'm alive. And I went to another facility a day later and was there for most of December. And there was a counselor at the facility who said, think of your track record. So I thought of my track record. I realized I kept using and relapsing. So let me try something different. Let me go to a longer term facility. I was at the longer term facility for a few weeks. It was very weird for me to adjust, but I felt like I was finally getting the groove there. My grandmother, I know, was approaching the end of her life. My mother had told me that at the facility she was staying at, she was getting weaker. She had texted me a few days before it happened. I got a call from my brother. I knew exactly what he was going to say. He had told me that she had passed. And my first decision while in this long term facility was to use. So that's what I did. And I overdosed again.
In the facility.
I did. Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah,
So you lose your grandmother. You miss her dying days. Did you miss the funeral?
I did. I was in the hospital recovering from my overdose, so I missed the funeral.
That's heartbreaking. And so now you've lost one of the pillars of your life and one of the most important people to you. And you nearly lost your life as a result. And all the while, you're battling depression and anxiety, not really knowing what's going on. Take me to what brought you to your knees.
It was a terrible time. I knew things could not get worse than that. So I was laying in a hospital bed and I called my mom, and I could already tell she was distraught. My grandmother was her mother. She just said to me, Andrew, we just finished burying your grandmother. Let us know where we should bury you.
Oh my God. Your family is seeing your impending demise. They're seeing you overdose and two times now intentionally trying to kill yourself. Where do you go from there?
Again, it was one of the worst times of my life, and I was just laying in the hospital bed and I was thinking, well, I really have no other choice but to get clean, and I wanted it. So I made the decision. I said to myself, this is my rock bottom. I cannot take any more pain. I can't do this anymore. I have to get clean. I want to get clean. So I put everything I had into getting clean, and that's what helped me. Granted, this was still January 2019. It would still take me over a month to actually stop using.
So you were in this long-term facility in the hospital and still you have made the decision to get clean, but you're struggling. So what finally was the light bulb switch?
I had several people tell me, whether they were doctors, family, friends, that if you don't stop using, you are going to die. And after my experiences with overdosing, I didn't want to reach that fate. I wanted to live. I know I have things to live for. I have people to live for. There are goals I want to accomplish, and I was not going to become another statistic. So I went to a longer term program. That was the foundation I needed to rebuild my life. I was away for 6 months, and then after I was able to move home, I thought that was a miracle because I never thought that was going to happen again. And this was now August 2019, so still several months before the COVID pandemic. And I just started to rebuild my life over those several months.
So while you're getting treatment for the disease of addiction, talk a little bit about the realization that you had a mental health condition and how you made the decision to move forward with accepting and treating that.
I had come to terms with the fact that I've probably lived with anxiety and depression for most of my life. While I was away, I trusted the doctors, psychiatrists, counselors, social workers who helped me with my case. I was prescribed medication that finally started working. I felt balanced. I felt normal, whatever that, word means to me or anyone else. And I thought and I felt I can get through life on this medication.
That probably helped stabilize a lot of the emotions that you were having too,
It did.
not taking you to so many extremes.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about your early recovery.
So my early recovery was full of um, being back home, which again, I never thought would happen. I had a good friend who wound up moving to another state. We still stay in touch. We're very close. We wound up going to all these different meetings around Long Island. We did that for months. And then COVID hit in March of 2020. I celebrated my birthday 2 weeks before, and it was very strange. We all remember COVID, and we all went to Zoom. So I needed to plug into my recovery as much as possible. So I was on a Zoom meeting pretty much every day. And I was in all these different groups, all these different meetings, and it's what I needed. And I survived that time from being by being on Zoom.
Yeah, getting clean during COVID was a lot of people's experience. And I think that gives you a really unique perspective into recovery. So you celebrated online, I presume.
So, you mean once I reached a year?
Yeah.
I have to say, I actually did not celebrate until my third year. I
Andrew.
know, I know, I know,
Andrew. You didn't celebrate the
I
miracle?
know,
Come
I
on,
know.
babe.
I remembered like telling my support group and my sponsor, they're like, oh, this is important. And I know a lot of people celebrated on Zoom and they were so much fun. I went to so many anniversaries, seeing that the program works and seeing that, showing newcomers that there is another way to live life. And it's without being addicted, it's without having to struggle because of substance abuse or mental health issues.
So tell me what it was like to pivot your recovery once the world opened back up post COVID.
That was also an interesting time. So I picked up where I left off with my friend. We went to all these different meetings in Nassau and Suffolk, and I used the NA app one Friday, and I saw that a meeting was going on in Hicksville at night at 8 o'clock. And I told my friend, oh my God, there's a meeting right in Hicksville. So let's try that. We did. It was only a few people. I had noticed someone I had seen at meetings. There was this meeting we did in Huntington called the Field of Dreams during the summer of 2020. It was a meeting outside. I thought that was so cool, even though the circumstances weren't necessarily that great. But it was just fun being outside and sharing. I had seen this guy who I heard speak and share at meetings, and I told my friend, and I'm like, Susanna, that's the guy, that's the guy. And I was without a sponsor for a while. I do not suggest that to anyone, but I knew I needed to take time to find the right sponsor for me. I wound up asking this guy to be my sponsor. He became my sponsor, and my life started changing for the better after that. We started actually working the program and doing step work. It has changed my life.
So tell me what it's been like to be clean and doing that work and who you are. Tell me about your service. Tell me about Andrew in the program.
So, the first few years, I had loved the program. It reminded me of what my recovery was like when I started, when I moved in 2018, and I was introduced to this whole world of recovery. I had loved doing service and being asked to speak. My first sponsor in another fellowship said, when you're asked to do service, you say yes. So I continued to make a lot of meetings. I found that Hicksville meeting and I made it my home group. I got a commitment. Since then, I've had a few different commitments. And then I started participating more, not just in the program, but in the fellowship by meeting more people and going to different meetings, trying NA events, which were new to me. I went to Addicts and Adventureland a few years in a row. I wish they still had that. It was so much fun. And my perspective on the entire fellowship and doing service has changed. I have been asked to speak at different facilities. I'm actually speaking at one tonight, and I think it's my fifth time speaking over the past year. and I love it. I love meeting people where they're at. I love seeing people in facilities and hearing the hope and telling them that there is a better way. And no matter how many times you've tried to do this, no matter how many times you've relapsed, if you are still alive, if your heart is still beating, you have another chance. And I am personally terrified of what's out there now with fentanyl seeping into the drug supply, xylazine, even kratom is so dangerous and addictive. Something that keeps me clean is knowing that if I go out, I may not make it back. And I've heard so many stories of people going out for one time and not making it back. People with time, people with years clean, relapsing and not making it back. And that scares the crap out of me.
Where are you in the step work?
So I'm about to finish my step 5. I was wished a slow recovery by so many people when I was in facilities, and I didn't know what that meant exactly. Now I know a little more. I know just from what I've been like and almost my competitive nature. I'm not trying to compete with anyone else in the program. It's not a race, but I feel like I need to put a little more energy into doing my step work and moving a little faster because I've almost done a step a year and I know I could do better. I know I could do more.
I think it's the most transformative part of the program, right? It's like we're in a program, but are you working the program?
Yes,
I think that step work is the most impactful thing that you can do for yourself, right?
it is. I agree. It is key to being clean and living in recovery.
And so, who is Andrew outside of the program?
That's a really good question. Outside of the program, I think I am a lot of fun. I love spending time with family and friends. I do work in the recovery field. I will say that when I started out my new life in 2018, when I changed everything after being in a facility, a lot of my friends started saying, "Have you ever thought of doing this for a living?" And I said, "What do you mean? I'm just listening to you. You know, talk about your stories, talk about how you've struggled with mental health, abuse, addiction, PTSD, anything like that." I'm like, "I'm just listening to you." And they're like, "Yeah, that's half the gig." So I became a recovery coach in 2019. I got my Case Act T earlier this year.
KSAC is.
It literally stands for Credentialed Alcohol and Substance Abuse Counselor. I am not certified. I will be in a few years. And I started working in the field, being a counselor. I love it. I knew I was born for this. And I want to see what's next. I think the best move for me personally, I'm going to go back to school for my MSW because I think it just provides me with so much flexibility in the field. You could be a case manager, a care coordinator, a counselor, a social worker, obviously. And then I want to see what's next after that. I just love helping people. I have nieces and nephews and I spend a lot of time with. I'm so grateful they don't have to see me high. So grateful. And I truly try to live each day by the fullest because life is precious. And I think sometimes we forget that. And life is also too short. So I just want to do whatever I can to fulfill my purpose in life.
Andrew is also an artist, although Andrew will not tell you that. Andrew is a
Thank you.
Andrew is a very talented poet
Oh, thank you. I
and a
appreciate that.
phenomenal makeup artist. You actually recently just performed your poetry. Talk about that.
Yes, I performed at an event in August. I did a lot of writing when I was in facilities. I kept a journal and I read a few poems. One specific one was about my grandmother. And this summer and the past few months, I had to come to terms with the guilt and shame I had felt about what I did to my grandmother when I was relapsing and not being able to make her funeral. And I read my poem, and it was so cathartic, and I couldn't believe the feedback I received about it. And thank you for your help in terms of reciting it. I definitely needed that. And I've come to a place now where I've come to terms with my past and I've made peace with that part of what was holding me back, I guess, from completing my step work and moving forward. Yeah, it just inspired me to write more. Hopefully, I will in the future. There were so many people who performed at this event who are great with music and singing and comedy, even. And it just goes to show you that anything is possible in recovery.
Oh, yeah. And having that creative outlet. You, one of your readings talks about creative action of the spirit. I thought it was very apropos for who you are as a person. And tell me a little bit about your, like, you're currently playing with a lip gloss right now in your hands.
Yes.
So
I
revealing.
yes. I my thing on TikTok is that my look is not finished without a what? Glossy lip. I started playing with makeup when I was much younger, and it only developed over time. It actually started progressing when I was using in 2016 and 2017, and then in recovery in 2018. And then it my passion kind of exploded during COVID, and I was mulling over starting a YouTube channel and making videos about makeup and skincare for so long. My brother and sister in law got me a ring light. I finally decided to do it one day, and I've been posting on first Instagram, then TikTok and YouTube for years now, and it's turned into something I never would have expected, truly.
I need some pointers.
Sure. And mind you, I am not a professional makeup artist, but I learned how to do makeup after consuming so much beauty content on YouTube and TikTok. And makeup has become my happy place. I just think it's so cool that anyone could do it, and there are no rules to makeup. And if you mess up, it washes off.
And you also have a collaboration, right? Like a recent collaboration with like an actual makeup line.
I do. I have a friend and business partner, Anne, who has her own indie brand called Ando's Beauty. We released a makeup collaboration earlier this year, an eyeshadow palette, a few highlighters, and lip products. I can't believe that happened. It literally blows my mind. And yeah, I am going to be collaborating with another indie brand soon. Anne and I might be doing a part two next year. And again, like the possibilities are endless in recovery. And I just want to show other people that, once you enter this world, we're not a glum lot. We're not boring. We're lots of fun. And you could accomplish anything.
You're absolutely right. The miracles that recovery can offer you are endless, and it's
They
so
are.
wonderful to see your success.
Thank you.
And just tell me in closing, you know, how do you think your life would have been different had you not gotten on your medication, gotten stabilized? How how has that helped you in your recovery even, like staying clean?
It has helped me in so many ways. I don't know if I would be here right now. I don't know if I would be able to sit here and do this podcast with you, truthfully. My anxiety got to a point where it was so bad that I thought that I might need to engage in self harm or anything like that. My depression took me to a very low place that I'm so thankful I haven't revisited. And if I had not found the medication, if I had not addressed my mental health issues, I don't think I would be stable enough to live the life that I've lived over the past several years.
So, have you engaged in therapy alongside with your step work?
I have. There are a lot of things that have contributed to me being where I'm at right now, including addressing my mental health issues and being on medication, getting stabilized. I've been in therapy for years. I think therapy is so beneficial for anyone who struggles with mental health or addiction, or anyone who just struggles with other things in their lives. Therapy has been so helpful. I would just advise anyone, not as a professional or anything like that, to seek out an outlet to express your creativity or to talk about your problems, talking about them and, getting these thoughts out of your head and like vocalizing them is a way that you can start to heal. If we don't do the work to heal, we're going to struggle. And I personally do not want to struggle my entire life. Not anymore.
Yeah. I think you've been through enough struggle. We all have our scars, but you wear them beautifully.
Thank you. I really appreciate
I
that.
appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Thank you for being such a bright light in these rooms. I mean, aside from the shimmer on your lids, like you sparkle like a freaking diamond. I want you to
Thank you.
know
I really appreciate that.
that. You're a gift to our community, and I'm so glad that you were able to be part of this production.
Thank you for having me. This was a gift to be on here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you too.
The Voices of Recovery podcast is an independent production of the Works of Wisdom. We welcome your questions and donations via PayPal at voicesofrecoverypod@gmail.com. This podcast is an independent production and is not affiliated with, associated with, authorized by, endorsed by, or in any way officially connected with Narcotics Anonymous or any of its subsidiaries or affiliates. While NA literature may be read during episodes for the purpose of supporting recovery, such use does not constitute an official endorsement or representation by Narcotics Anonymous. In accordance with NA tradition, the NA name is not to be used to endorse or be affiliated with any outside enterprise, and no such endorsement or affiliation is implied. Music is by Sage. Thanks for listening to the Voices of Recovery podcast.